Hilary, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hilary Calvert joins us. Do you remember, and how good are you on the Old Testament?
A bit of, not sure about the Old Testament.
All right.
Too full of hellfire and brimstone.
Oh, no, it's not really. That's the way it's been interpreted. The Old Testament's really quite amazing. But if you go back to Genesis and the Garden of Eden, the serpent convinces Eve, of course it does, a bloody woman. I mean, they always were the weak link in the human chain. Convinces Eve.
Men were tempted by them.
No. It was Eve Eve drove the... Listen, let's be quite clear about this. The Christians got this right, the old Jewish folk, that when they told the tale, it was the woman who was corrupted. Okay, the man, no, don't go there. Woman, no, I'm just going to go there, you know? So she went shopping with Satan at the Tree of Knowledge, remember? And brings back the apple. And then they work out...
And that's the end of us. Yeah.
That's the end of it. It's the end of us. We've been out of the Garden of Eden ever since. But no. And so that was quite Promethean. You see, Satan was basically Prometheus. So he was, in actual fact, saying, if you eat this apple, you will be very knowledgeable. You'll know everything that's going on. And he convinced her to eat it, and we all know what happened next. But no. The thing that I've always thought is Satanists are basically the Prometheites, if you like. They actually believe that God is trying to deny humankind knowledge. So Satanists were, although you've probably got this view of, they worship, goats' backsides and sacrifice small children and things like that. Not the original Satanists. They were called Luciferians. And they believed that Lucifer, as they called him, rather than Satan, was essentially that Prometheus-type character. But one thing that they've always hated is stupidity. So I embraced my satanic side this morning when I came to commenting on, you see, Hilary, the interpretation last night by TVNZ of that particular poll.
Yes, it was just something else, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? I was listening to it and going, you stupid woman. And then I read, I thank God, they put everything that she wrote down on paper. It's available to you if you want to go to it, her analysis of it. But it is just stupid line after stupid line after stupid line. It's amazing.
Well, it's sort of asking people when it's not that time, even apart from the other stupidities you were talking about earlier, is sort of like asking the people of Europe and the US what they would do if Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years before it did. What they have said, all sorts of things, but who knows what they would actually do.
But it was also her analysis that, taking on the Waitangi Tribunal and restricting basically a variety of benefits, particularly school lunches, had somehow led to New Zealand and the centre-right coalition talking itself out of power, it was just bizarre. Anyhow, what do you want to talk about this week,
Talking herself out of a job, yeah.
Well, no, she's not, is she? She's only got the job because she's a Maori woman. If she was...
Keep having it. Aren't they changing the layout of TV1 News? Will she keep having the job after the restructuring down there?
Well, listen, yes. They'll fire the white people. The conservative white people will be the first out the door.
Yes. What interested me this week partly, and because I saw something historical, this stuff about fast track things and how do we have a process that involves serious advice by some very useful people, apparently, followed by 3 ministers making a decision, and clearly Cabinet too, because the 3 ministers wouldn't make a decision if Cabinet didn't want them to, or the Prime Minister. So effectively, Cabinet making a decision with Shane Jones and a couple of other people fronting it. And I looked back sometimes. Stan Rogers was a leading light in Dunedin politically, and he was involved in building a building. And back then, the parking system was the reverse of what it is now. So you could not build a building or use it for a variety of purposes unless it had sufficient car parking, which was intended to be so many spaces per so many office space or whatever it is. So rather than not being allowed car parking, you were obliged to have it. And back then, Stan Rogers was involved in building a building in Dunedin. And it reminded me that not only has parking gone on its ear for now, but back then the reason why buildings got built was because somebody just built them. And it was probably just Stan Rogers. Probably wasn't even 3 ministers who had to be consulted. People didn't have to be consulted. They just, we used to just build buildings, and it's the consultation and the project management crap that's happening at the moment, not project management, the planning and all the stuff before it even starts, like the 120 million that's been spent in Wellington on business cases and crap. Let's get Wellington bogged down, or whatever it was called. And so I wonder what these people thought back in the day about the fact that you didn't even have 3 ministers making a decision like that. It was just a government building being done how it was done, and other buildings were done by their owners. You just didn't have all this crap consultation stuff. Nobody complained then about you were fast-tracking something if you built it within, 10 years of when you were ready to go. So
no, fair point.
We all need a fast-track process. Why should anyone have to go through that treacle crap?
No, and the unfortunate thing, as we now know, is that you are also battling something that has just been added or grafted into the Resource Management Act, which is cultural factors. Or, where suddenly, if not for no good reason, that can stymie a particular project. Another one, natural landscapes. That can stymie a particular project. And then these all become highly subjective opinions.
Yes. And it all
which
takes longer.
It all takes time and money and lots of legal fees.
And time is very definitely money at that point, because if you delay a project, you make it cost a whole lot more. You've been watching the building that the regional council's building in Dunedin, which was presented to councillors, I think, initially at something like, it's going to cost 25 million to build, which it might have been worth it for the rent to build it back then. It's now close to 60 million. And it's not even that it took, that isn't from that long ago that it thought it was 25, but they suck people in with this amount, and then it just keeps going up and up and up.
And that's the other thing that people are getting really angry about in this country, and that is it doesn't matter whether central government's building it or local government's building it, but they will come up with some grand scheme. It doesn't matter whether it's a memorial hall or a sport and recreation facility or a bridge, or, as you say, a headquarters for their own staff, some sort of glorified retreat. And then they say it's going to cost X. And we all know, sadly now, because we can't trust these people when they consult on these issues, we can't trust their figures. And I'm struggling to remember the last capital project that local or central government did on this country that came in on budget and on time. Hilary, when would that miracle have occurred?
Yes, and you wonder whether it suits governments to have the delay and that it's worth it for the cost. For a start off, the cost is going to be for a subsequent government if you delay it long enough. So you can say you're building Dunedin Hospital or whatever you're doing.
Good example.
And then you just delay it, and then it costs too much, and then you have to get rid of 3 wings out of 4 of it or something. But you've had the press release, the really expensive press releases just saying you're going to do something that you intend to delay, hassle and stall with.